A webinar participant asks, do you have any tips on how to share assumption testing results with stakeholders? I love this question. It's a hard one to answer because, of course, it depends. So it's going to depend on the stakeholder. It's going to depend on how they are involved, how involved they are in the proposed solutions. It's going to depend on how much detail they want about the assumption tests. So one of the key elements of effective stakeholder communication is to really know what your stakeholder wants. Do they just want to hear about the final decision? This is what we're building and why? Or do they want to ride along and hear about all the twists and the turns? Here's what we tried. Here's what didn't work. Here's what did work. So you want to tailor your communication to what that stakeholder wants and needs. But let's talk through some common scenarios. Let's say you have a stakeholder who proposed a solution and they're really committed to it. Okay, if that's the case, I'm going to communicate a lot about my assumption testing. I'm going to include them as we generate assumptions. I'm going to include them as we set success criteria because I need this stakeholder to believe the results of the assumption test. If it turns out their idea is faulty, I need them to be able to let go of it. And the only way that's going to happen is if they're involved in setting the success criteria. So in that instance, I'm not just communicating my results, I'm including them in the assumption test design. Now, if I have a boss who doesn't really care about the twists and turns, we're an empowered team, they understand that we're going to try a bunch of things and we're going to land somewhere and they just want to know where we landed, then I might not share any of my assumption testing with them. I might come back at the end and say, we compared and contrasted these solutions, and then I might just give highlights. We chose this one because it outperformed the rest on this risky assumption. And by the way, we ruled out the others because they had these faults. So I might just communicate a set of assumption tests that supported a final decision. And then, of course, there's everything in between. So when you're trying to decide how to communicate your assumption test results, don't use the same strategy for every stakeholder. Start with how involved do they want to be? How involved do they need to be? And then tailor your communication to match that. Again, if you're new to assumption testing and you have no idea what we're talking about, check out that assumption testing article in the post below. That'll help you get up to speed. And then if you have experience with sharing your assumption test results with different stakeholders, I, of course, want to hear about your experience in the comments below.